The following is a podcast from Talk Radio 970 KSYL.
It's Central Louisiana's original Talking Heads, Talkback 970, with Matthew Dunn and Jim Leggett. Give us a call at 442-TALK. That's 442-8255. Here's Talkback 970 with Matt and Jim.
Hour number 2 of this Tuesday, July 10th edition of Talkback on the way. Here we hope that your morning is getting started in all of the right ways. We are thrilled, as always, to have our monthly visit with the mayor north of the river, the one and only Clarence Fields, mayor of Pineville. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm great. How about you? I just noticed something. I don't know if I'm in part of that talking heads. You know?
No. We're the talking heads.
We had a camera.
You have an official role, an official title. We're just these guys.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I guess a good thing I'm not here enough to be classified as such.
Well, listen, Mayor. First of all, congratulations from all of us here at KSYL Broadcasting, KSYL, and of course Jim and myself personally. You were inaugurated for another term on July 2nd of this month, just about a week ago, and it's got to be a great feeling. I know you've done it multiple times now, but it still has to feel great.
Yeah, it really does. We're looking forward to the next 4 years. Obviously, challenging. I think for the most part, this was kind of special. I had my son and my daughter, but one lives in Minnesota and one lives in Washington, D.C. or Arlington, Virginia, in that particular area. And then, my family, but most importantly, my two grandboys were here, even though they were 3.5 and 2, maybe they will have some memories, even though they didn't stay very long, because just imagining trying to handle two young boys that age or whatever. But that was pretty special having them here for them.
Well, just keep the pictures, and that way you can prove to them they were here.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a lot of fun, really was.
Ned would always joke with me back when he was still with us. Ned would always joke with me that he had never had an election in his life where he ran unopposed. And he had known gobs of friends who held public office through the various parts of the state who had, and talked about, when things are going well and no one decides to challenge you, even though there are still, daily and topic issue challenges, it's a great thing. Now, this is multiple times that you've run unopposed. It's got to be an amazing feeling that people think you're doing that good of a job to where no one's going to challenge you.
Well, here again, it's a blessing, but hopefully what we try to do, and I say what we try to do, we do it to the best of our abilities with the resources that we have, but most importantly, trying to include, everyone, that includes obviously all of our employees, but most of engaging with our citizens, getting them involved, good or bad, and I think, and then communicating, like being on this show, good or bad, that we think that's very important. So, it's been a blessing. You talk about Ned, and I've said this before, he was special to me because, coming in under, the circumstances I came in, and him taking me literally up under his wing. He was a special person because he was able to do that. He just,
Thank you.
He was very special, whether, him being unopposed or whatever, obviously he was very successful at what he was able to accomplish. And, likewise, the north-south issue and all the above, Pineville, Alexandria, he was really special in making some things happen that were necessary in this region. So,
thank you for saying those words. Thank you for saying those words, certainly. Okay, so now that you are inaugurated, you hit the ground running. First of all, tell us, I know the weather was challenging, but tell us, how did the July 4th event, I know it was a few days, or the night, the third, right, exactly. At Bulow. Yeah. Considering the weather, how was the turnout?
The turnout was going to be very good. And, look, I take full responsibility. It was my responsibility to make that call. Obviously, midstream, somewhere along the line, we canceled, those, even the fireworks, probably the fireworks. And then, you can't second guess yourself because, to some extent of whatever the weather may have cleared out. But at that particular time, it was a call that I needed to make. People were really streaming in, and then we had a burst of weather that came through, got all of us wet, had some wind with it. And then that, looking at the radar and also looking out in the skies, we just decided we can't have all these people gathering here. And then something, one life is not worth, some activity or some festivity or whatever.
Mayor Roy,
What do you
too.
do with all those fireworks?
Well, that's something we will.
Can you store them?
Well, no, those are not. We're not those professionals. We'll work out something with the individuals that do those fireworks and some other event or whatever, and see how we work that out. Unfortunately, as you would well know, when you schedule bands, we had 3 bands scheduled. The bands never got to even perform. Actually, I think a couple bands, you got to realize too, there was a little bit of equipment that was probably damaged because of the way the weather came through from the onset, and that's the danger of that. Regardless, if you're not inside, that's a chance you take. So we will work things out with those bands and with the fireworks folks and all the above as far as how we move forward, and as far as how we, from a money standpoint, and also in the future, we hopefully utilize those same bands and everything.
Mayor Roy did mention on last Friday at his press briefing, I had a chance to attend. He mentioned how a lot of people and officials from Pineville helped work out on the July 4th event that they had, the Rockin' the Red. And he also talked about how many people, a ton of people were on the Pineville side enjoying the festivities, and it kind of became its own little block party over there. So I did want to mention that he certainly sent kudos Pineville's way, considering that you guys had gotten rained out the night before. Yeah,
but that's a good thing to some extent or whatever. And them, we doing what we do on the evening before, and they doing what they do on the evening after. It gives people 2 opportunities to attend, a special event. So, it'd be great for them if the weather turned out where people who would have normally probably attended our event decided also to attend their event. So both sides of the river, from my understanding, were pretty much packed, and that's a great thing. So we thank them for doing what they do, because it showcases, both cities in what they do, because there's a river, and there on both sides are, people enjoying fireworks and music and things of that nature. So that's important.
Let's go broad before you get to what you brought with you. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. You've been elected to another term now. What is priority 1 for you? And I'm not talking about, taking it day by day. If you could have things in, I guess, an ideal world, what would you want to do first in this newest term?
Well, obviously, the one thing that we have to do, and that's something we'll be working on, in conjunction with, I say in conjunction with Alexandria to somewhat mirror Alexandria, is revitalization of our downtown area, Main Street, the riverfront, and things of that nature. We're bringing someone in the special events arena who literally will take over the special events and things of that nature. Doug Gann, some of you may know him. He's coming in at the end of the month to take on that responsibility. The young lady who has had that responsibility, she's moving into the front office. And so there's some changes there to be made. Those changes were not made because those changes needed to be made. Those changes were made because of medical reasons. And so we had to move some people around. But he's been working hard over the past couple of months, actually not even being employed, and looking at different things how to move us forward and all the above. I think the key for us, in the next 4 years or now hitting the ground running, is to continue to communicate with with our citizens as to what their expectations are, and in saying that, they need to understand, for us to be able to continue to provide the services that we provide, and also to continue to address the infrastructure issues that we have. Not only we, but many others. We're working in the downtown area as we currently speak on water and sewer and things of that nature. Those things don't go away. They continue, and from a maintenance perspective, you have to address those issues all the time. I just remind people, when you listen to stories around the state and stories around the country when it comes to water issues that cities are having and things of that nature, that's because we have a responsibility to make sure that we keep those systems up. And unfortunately, the cost is on the citizens.
Right.
There's not money falling out of the sky to maintain water systems and all the above. So those are things that we are looking at in the future as best we possibly can. We always say, when it's all said and done, we want things to be better than what it was when we came in. And that's not slighting anyone else, but that's the way it should be. So we'll communicate with our people, and and that comes with people getting involved from a standpoint of financially and things of that nature. It doesn't work any other way. I remind people, our as far as sources of revenue, we cannot. Our expectations from the federal government, from state government, those are pretty much drying up as far as expecting them to help. So it's on the citizens' back if their expectations are to continue to receive what they receive. We have to communicate to them how we need to continue to do that. So those are huge hurdles for us, and we still have to deal with the everyday issues of operations and things that we don't control from a budgetary standpoint. When you talk about health insurance and pensions and things of that nature, liability insurance, those are things to some extent that we do not control, and but we just have to make people understand. Why we do things the way and why they have to participate to a certain extent.
Jim, go ahead.
No, that was it. If I'd had my wish list, I'd have said some pennies from heaven, more money so you can have more sales tax off of that.
Well, hey, that's a good point. This past budget year, 17-18, our sales tax at the end of the year, June 30th, we were sales tax was up 0.67%. And that's pennies, to be very honest with you. So
it's better than going in the hole.
It's better than going in the hole, but it doesn't keep up with the expense part of it. Of course, what you hear people, and rightfully so, stay within your means. Only spend what you. That's fine to say. Only spend what you should spend and what you have. Yeah, we try to do that, but there's those things that we do not control.
Are you looking at annexation at all?
We're not
to the west or to the east.
Yeah, to the annexation. We're not. Let me talk. As far as annexation is concerned, yeah, sure. So you got to talk about smart growth when you talk about annexation. Whatever. When you talk about annexation, there's communities or there's subdivisions or whatever outside our corporate limits going east, going south. Yeah, sure. We would love, or they would love, to potentially be in our corporate limits. But from a standpoint of we being able to, provide them with the services that we provide, when you do that, you got to be very careful because obviously you have to add public safety. It impacts the fire system. Obviously, impacts your coverage when it comes to the police department. You've got to buy new sanitation trucks and all those kinds of things. And you got to be very careful because really you can't, depending on how fast and how much of that you do, you really can't provide the services when you go far and above your means. And but sure, we'd love to do that. So that's something we'll look at in the future, but it's not something we're just going to go out and piecemeal and or grab just for the heck of it.
Well, I remember in the old days, and I don't know that it's true anymore, but Pineville used to be a little bit checkerboarded, and there was expanses in between two incorporated areas that weren't, and they had to go around it or something, or get intergovernmental agreements, and it just would make more sense to have one solid patch.
Yeah, that was a problem, and we still are filling those. We've filled a lot of those pockets, and that creates many other problems when you talk about whether through gerrymandering or whatever you want to call it. That was a problem, and we've kind of shored that up a bit, where we've made things a little bit more contiguous,
exactly.
to our corporate limits and everything.
Let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we'll get into what the mayor wants to discuss with the agenda. Also, I do see a couple of questions have popped up via the Facebook page. We'll ask him those, but we'll also open it up to phone calls. If you have a question for Mayor Fields or a comment, give us a call, 442-8255. Right back after this.
Talk Radio 970, KSYL. Talk Back 970 with Matt and Jim on KSYL 970 and in high definition on 100.3 HD3.
Back here with Pineville Mayor Clarence Fields. If you have a call for him, wide open phone lines, 442-8255. Mayor, what I was thinking about just popped up in my head just a millisecond ago before we get into the agenda. I was thinking about this, I've had discussions with a few Alexandria officials about this time of the year. Mm-hmm. This is the calm before the storm. A lot of and I know people like Kelly West and people like that will talk about that. Not all camps and things like that are over with per se, but a lot of them do wind down this time of year. And so you got this sort of the rest of late July and kind of getting into August before school starts. Do you guys see more kids hanging around streets and things like that? And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but you see more people outside because the kids maybe not having much to do right now.
Look, now I have to, I guess I have to reference age. I can remember when I was coming up, and during the summer, you saw kids everywhere, mm-hmm. But really, I'm not seeing that many kids out, because I think kids there's more things for kids to do that's more concentrated. For instance, splash pad. A lot of the kids are at splash pads. A lot of kids are playing, if they're even in the area, they're probably playing travel ball or something like that. Obviously, this time of the year with all the all-star activity and things of that nature, there's really not a lot of activity, come to think of it, as far as kids are concerned, that you can drive around and see kids playing whether they're playing in the streets or in the front yard and things of that nature. I think everybody pretty much has some kind of small pool somewhere where, in the backyard or something like that. But it's been pretty quiet when it comes to that and everything. Speaking of that, you sometimes get concerned when you talk about that because of, summer and kids out and, I guess you could say the mischievous things that they would probably do like we used to do it, all the above, and probably get away with, but you don't really see a lot of that. So, there's not a lot of activity in respect to that. We have our youth center that, sure. Pretty much takes care of about 100 kids. And so there's something for kids to do if they're not in the house in front of the television or on some game or something of that nature or whatever. I think that makes a lot of the difference in everything.
One of the questions that just popped up, our good buddy Brian asked, can you ask Mayor Fields what the possibility of Pineville getting a dog park is? Yeah,
well, I've to be very honest with you, I've had several people, that have made that kind of request. That's something, and I'll be very honest, it's something that we'll look into. But from a priority standpoint, we have to prioritize things. And, when you have limited funds and things of that nature, unless you can find some other way to do that, just like the splash pad, that's not at the top of the list right now, even though we would love to do it because we know that is and when we go to other areas, we see that. But that again comes to where we need to communicate to people how they can make things like that happen, because it's not you just write a check and go build a dog park. It's a lot more to that.
Might I make a recommendation?
Go right ahead.
Here? Okay, I would contact if I were one of your people, I would contact in your staff. I would contact the fast food restaurant, Louisiana's own Raising Cane's, as they build them all around the state. Now, you're probably going to have to match it with a little bit of grant money, but it might not have to be a big check that Pineville writes. It might be some corporate support on that. Now, they're going to want to put a sign in the dog park that says, brought to you by Raising Cane's.
Probably want to put a store.
Anybody that wants to, and speaking of Raising Cane's, don't think that we have not had conversation with Raising Cane's and others about, locating in Pineville. We've actually, just to let you know, we are, matter of fact, I think at 10 o'clock this morning, Rich has a webinar with a company called Retail Strategies. Retail Strategies is doing some work for us around the country. A couple of months ago, they were in Vegas, for lack of better words, kind of showcasing Pineville at different kinds of events or whatever, where there are people that want to locate or looking to locate in a particular area. So we are doing business with them, and they are showcasing Pineville.
Excellent.
We have a 3-year contract with them, and hopefully we'll see some. We can't do it by ourselves. For one, we don't have enough people and staff or whatever just to go out and just. We do the best we can in marketing ourselves. So it's up to people like Retail Strategies, and it's up to our own people, citizens, and all the above to really market the city of Pineville.
Yeah, and we were talking about the economy seems to be pretty good amongst citizens in Pineville right now, in the city of Pineville. We were talking about it off the air, and I'm just going off the top of my head, so people who live in Pineville could quote me better than I could, or quote them, what it is better than I could. But recently, in the past 6 months, you've got CC's that has popped up. What's As the Crow Flies? I forget the other one that opened up.
Yeah.
Then Factory Connection, a clothing retail, discount clothing retail has opened up. A lot of new businesses are starting to pop up in Pineville.
Yeah, and it's things that people don't really notice because they're small things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They're mom and pop, for lack of better words, things or whatever. People pay attention to the big things and all the above, and there are small things that are popping up, but they're also at the same time be careful in saying that because unfortunately with the economy, and hopefully the economy continues to strengthen, but there are small things that are also, if you're not careful, tomorrow they're closed. So you're kind of offsetting one to the other and all the above. But there's still a lot of potential there, and we just have to, as best we possibly can, take advantage.
Well, I think one of the things is the old Kmart. The people who own it, whoever that is, they're getting their income right now, but that's coming to an end pretty soon, and then that's a push to get it developed again for something else, multi-use or another big user. But right now he's sitting there on their laurels, but it isn't going to last very long.
Speaking of the OK Mart, we've been in constant contact with those folks out of Texas and talking about the OK Mart. There's been a couple of things that have popped up, a couple of things that we don't agree with. Just for the sake of, you just don't want something to locate in something and spoil the whole thing. But there's a lot of conversation still going on. And Jim, I agree with you. Sooner than later, we believe something will transpire there.
Message from Brett now, who asked, Mayor, since you just talked about Raising Cane's, any further word on anything about a Pineville Chick-fil-A? I guess they're throwing them all at you about chicken today, Mayor.
Chicken.
Continued talks. Okay. That's what I can say. I don't know. It's that's a biggie for people. And here again, hopefully Retail Strategies, the firm that we're working with as we speak or whatever, will be able to help us as far as putting us more so on the map and attracting the establishments like that and everything.
Just don't have it right off the highway, because the highway will start to become more and more congested. You might have to build Chick-fil-A their own street, right off the highway, so that street gets crowded instead of the highway itself.
Well, I don't think Chick-fil-A is going to buy into that because they want traffic.
We will work with Chick-fil-A on some endeavor of that nature or whatever, whether it's through some partnership and all the above, but it's let me go back to Main Street with Doug Gann coming in and particularly hopefully getting the Main Street program off the ground. We'll see some things start happening there. Another key to that, even though it is a medical facility, with the opening of the Rapides or the Huey P. Long Clinic, by Rapides on Monday, that'll kind of enhance the area for the most part or whatever. Even though it's a medical facility, it still brings some some light and some traffic to the particular area.
All right, we're due for our next break. When we come back, I promise to let the mayor get into his notes. We'll
be very many notes, so we're doing great.
We'll be right back.
Today's Bloomberg Report is brought to you by your Central Louisiana Buick dealer, Vaughn Buick GMC in Bunkie.
Here's Talkback 970 with Matt and Jim on KSYL 970 and in high definition on 100.3 HD3.
Back here with Pineville Mayor Clarence Fields. Get your phone calls in, 442-8255. Mayor, finally we get to the agenda. What do we have coming up?
What agenda? No. Well, obviously, it's evening at 6 o'clock, starting at 5:30 with the legal committee meeting, no zoning meeting. The city council meeting, it's at 6 o'clock, begins at 6 o'clock. There are literally 2 agenda items tonight, and that's it. And either one of them are of any significance whatsoever. And it could be 3 with some condemnations. Other than that, one of our Ocho Rio subdivision, we're going to execute a filing plat relative to the dedication of the servitudes and property lines for Phase 3. That's lot 71 through 78 in Ocho Rio. But from an agenda standpoint, that's really, this is just, I think everything somewhat begins next month in August, because we make a lot of appointments for the next fiscal year when it comes to one council appointments to different committees, chairing different committees, and other appointments that we make, and literally ratifying some of the other folks that we already, have in positions when it comes to committees and things of that nature. So that'll create a big agenda on next month and ratifying all of that. So the biggest issue has been getting the budget through and moving with that. By the way, because I want people to know, our general fund budget this year is about $17.4 million. That does not count the utility and the proprietary budgets, which are proprietary sanitation and trash, which are different budgets, and also the utility budget, which is water and sewer budgets or whatever. But that's the general fund budget that we're looking at. I can tell you the general fund budget probably encompasses about 80% of that is salaries, benefits, insurance, and things of that nature. So the rest of it is really operational costs, and there's not a whole lot of rest when you talk about that.
How much of an increase is there over last year, or is it standstill?
But no, it's not standstill. Let me remind, because I want people to know, last year's budget was about a $500,000 increase, maybe $600,000 increase over last year. But also realize at the same time, and we've talked about this, and we talk about this all the time because we want people to know, we had a 19.3% increase in health insurance. Okay? That was huge. Now I'll tell you, we passed what we could, unfortunately, on to our employees. And then we pass more of it on to our retirees. But that's something you have to do. And that's going to be ongoing unless some things happen. And let me also remind people, well, a lot of people say, well, you need to go out and shop and look for other health. That's not necessarily the case.
Not in the long run.
Not in the long run, because, in the long run, if you do that, they're going to get you. But the problem is the activity. Unfortunately, you go through those 1 or 2, 3 years where I'll tell you, catastrophic events, medical events that an employee may have or whatever. That's literally what really can drive your budget, and that's what's driven ours. And God forbid we can't control that. And other than preventive care and things of that nature or whatever. But between the health insurance and then unexpectedly, to some extent or whatever, when you thought that the pensions had kind of stabilized a bit or whatever, then we get a increase in both. We're on the 3 pension plans. Let me remind people of that: the municipal employee retirement system, which is the non-classified employees like sanitation workers and people like that. And then you have your police, which is a separate pension fund, and then you have your fire, which is a separate pension fund. Well, we incurred, increases in the municipal employee retirement system and the police retirement system. So those hit you pretty hard, particularly when you talk about 2-3% increases on those sides, they hit you pretty hard. So the increase in the budget, we tried our best to curtail overtime and things of that nature, and we've restricted that to some extent or whatever. But it's the unknown that we just I hate to say we can't control, but we don't control. You know.
I'm glad you started talking about that and talking about the city budget and the finances and so forth. How did you guys, and you guys might have talked about this when Dave filled in for me about a month ago when you were on with us last, how did you guys make out, and you can even speak to this with your involvement with the Louisiana Municipal Association, how did cities like Pineville around the state fare finally after the dust settled with the legislative session?
Well, for the most part, we fared fairly well. We obviously lobby a lot on behalf of all the cities when it comes to budgetary issues, or when it comes to legislation that may pass mandates down to municipalities,
which they're not supposed to do.
Well,
anyway.
exactly. We fared fairly well, but they're still going to be impact. It impacts you one way or the other sometimes. But we done okay there. But there's it's different. It's different. So let me say this, by the way, legislatively in our conversations with delegation, and they understand the plight that we're in, and getting them to to try to help us as much as they possibly can. But obviously they have to help the state first, and then we're the locals. We're the last one on the totem pole, so we get the brunt of the. And then here again, it's hard to the unforeseen, like when you talk about DEQ regulations and EPA regulations and things of that nature, you just don't get past those, and those get passed down to you, and it makes it very difficult for municipalities on a local level.
While we're on the subject of state politics, there's been a couple of announcements north of the river for some prominent people, whether they're attorneys or politicians themselves. Obviously, Chris Hazel, current representative representing Pineville, has said that he plans on running for judge.
Correct.
Mike Johnson, the very popular attorney north of the river, has said that he plans on running for Chris Hazel's, what will be his former seat. So with all of that said, Pineville politics, I know that you can't endorse anyone, nor will you, but essentially the landscape of the representation of your town, your city, excuse me.
I think what's going on relative to the politics, particularly, some of the movement from the legislature to the weather with Mr. Hazel running for judge, or Mike running, and who else might be running for those particular positions or whatever. We get involved to the extent where, depending on the impact it's going to have on our municipality and on our people or whatever, we get involved in that. You said I don't endorse anyone. Literally, for the most part, I don't, but I do engage when I think it's necessary for me to do that, when I think it's in the best interest of the people that I have the responsibility to, and all the above. So I won't, I won't dilly dab in other folks' politics for the most part. but I will make it known how I feel about something. And,
and in the case of Chris Hazel, he would have to win the judgeship for Mike Johnson to run early. Otherwise, they run at the end of the term. Because Chris Hazel's not term limited till the next year.
Yeah, that'll get pretty interesting as to how things unfold.
And then you've got literally right at your doorstep, you've got the Ball mayoral election, which is going to be, I think, even though that's a very small town, going to be very interesting to watch from a Central Louisiana perspective, with two gentlemen that you know very well, Mayor Cavanaugh and then former Mayor Hebron getting back into it. So obviously, I'm sure folks in Pineville, because that's right next door, will be paying attention to that. Very
absolutely.
closely.
You have to pay attention to that. I go back to the regional aspect, aspect of things. And so, yes, we do have to pay attention to that. Obviously, here again, that's another race that, it needs to run its own course and all the above. And we'll be watching that very closely. And because, we have to communicate and we have to correspond with Ball, just like we do with Alexandria and Woodworth and any other communities around our. But any elections in our immediate area are very important to us. Also, we can't think that we can sit on some island and not be impacted by elections and who's in office and things of that nature or whatever. So, we'll see how things unfold, and then we'll go from there.
Due for our next break. We'll be right back.
Talk Radio 970, KSYL. Give us a call at 442-TALK. That's 442-8255. Talk back 970 with Matt and Jim.
Back here with Mayor Clarence Fields. If you have a call, get it in, 442-8255. Mayor, I was just telling you off air, I know that probably when he filled in for me last month, Dave mentioned this to you, as I think the announcement had just been made, but congratulations again to Pineville. How many years, out of how many years have you guys won this Cleanest City Award?
This is the 11th year and 16 years.
That is incredible.
So, it is. But it's still a lot of fun when you can set a bar and other municipalities get involved, and it makes it really interesting. It doesn't look like it right now, because I tell you, with this rainy season, and people, please forgive us, with the grass just growing like it is and all the above. I know I have the same problem trying to keep up with mine, but and then those are, let me remind people too, those are a small department, and a few people keep up a lot. And, we've got a couple of people out right now due to some injuries. And, so it's tough right now trying to keep up. And then, obviously the weather making it a little bit difficult, but we'll get there.
How many? I know that Sheriff Hilton talked about this a few weeks ago at North Rapides, but do you know off the top of your head a roundabout, estimate, if you will, on how much inmate labor is used for that in Pineville?
Yeah, at a maximum inmate labor, we have 4 crews that, and also when you talk about 4 crews, there's so much that they can do and there's so much that they can't do. Like, you won't see inmates, rarely on a lawnmower or something of that nature, whatever. You might see them with weed eaters or see them picking up paper, trash, things of that nature, whatever. But we have 4 crews. Each crew, for the most part, we probably got, depending on a week or whatever, we'll have somewhere from 16 to 20 individuals total that you'll see out there.
Wow.
That's not counting the other inmates that work around other parts of the city, and potentially in recreation at City Hall, around some of the building areas and things of that nature. So you can see how important those individuals are to us, as far as because if we had to go out and hire, Now let me also be very clear, man. People think we're getting, it's all free. It's not all free, but because the individuals that has the responsibility of overseeing those individuals, we've got to pay for those, and then we've got to pay for the equipment. We have to pay for the transportation and things of that nature. So, but it's a huge help to us.
Let's go ahead and take this phone call. Good morning. You were on with Mayor Fields.
Good morning, Mighty Man, Big Jim, and Mayor Clarence Fields. How y'all are there?
Good.
Great. Cornelius, how are you, sir?
Look, I wanted to congratulate you, Mayor, on winning that Cleanest City. Y'all definitely got the cleanest city I've ever seen, and congratulations. Like I said again, at the Pineville Community Center, we met the Rapides Republican women and stuff, and we want to thank y'all for letting us meet over there Sunday from 1 to 5. Albert Guillory, Mike Johnson, and a whole lot of other people, Billy Nungesser. And it was just a fabulous meeting over there, and that's a nice place to meet. And then last month, the Power Coalition met over there. So I just wanted to thank you for letting us meet and the citizens of Pineville meet over there and stuff, because, like I said, that's a great facility. We had about 50 people come to both of them. So I commend you there, Mayor Clarence Fields. And too, our big prophecy conference that we had all last month, about 50 people attended that. So I just want to thank you for letting people, and I heard your interview too. You said you're a God-fearing man and you put God first. That's why Pineville's first. So that was nice to hear.
Okay, thank you very much,
God
Cornelia.
bless you.
Thank you, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I think that's a very good line that you have never made any bones about it. Your faith heavily influences your deciin making.
Yeah, I'm no perfect person, but that has a lot to do with it. I have no doubt about that.
Let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to allow the mayor to tell you about everything coming up in Pineville, and of course, talk about whatever else he needs to convey to you, the citizens out there, and of course, we might still have time for a phone call or two. Right back, one more segment with Pineville Mayor Clarence Fields.
Talk Radio 970, KSYL. Talk Back 970 with Matt and Jim on KSYL 970 and in high definition on 100.3 HD3.
Final 5 minutes or so with Mayor Clarence Fields. And Mayor, I'll turn it over to you. Whatever is left, my friend.
Well, in all of our talking and all about that, I have to mention the city council. I have to congratulate each one of those individuals, all 5 of them. Obviously, they did not have opposition either. I go back to the great job that they do. They like myself, that we on an everyday basis, we deal with a lot of things, and they allow us to handle that as best as we possibly can. Most importantly, we try to communicate with them as much as we possibly can. But they're a group of individuals that are not. I say individuals. They what's in the best interest of the city as a whole. That's what they do, and that's hard to do when you represent a certain area, but there are expectations of you. But they too, in communicating to people, and there's a lot of times probably I don't really have to, or we don't have to as a staff communicate to people because they're doing the communication, whatever, and that's very important. So likewise for them to go in, like they have, it speaks a lot of volume from them. Again, not a perfect world, but we have our we have our concerns between us and all the above, but we're able to sit down and talk about those. And when it's all said and done, we do what's best for the city of Pineville. So I want to congratulate each and every one of them. And along with that, I talk about these folks all the time, all of our employees, whether it's public safety employees, police and fire, or whether it's that sanitation worker or that water department employee. Those individuals, almost 280 of them, play the huge role in the city of Pineville in making things happen each and every day. Again, not a perfect world, but for the most part, just a great group of folks. The kudos that they get, or that we receive from people about them, we try to pass that on. And that goes back again to, how do you reward those folks? That's the tough part. And nobody's asked me in this budget process as to whether or not they're going to get a raise or not. Okay. Not one single person has asked me that. And I can be very upfront and tell you right now, the way things are from a budgetary standpoint, and from a revenue standpoint, that's not going to happen. But I've not had that conversation with them, but that's where our citizens play a very important part. And, when we present something to them, they have to make that decision, not only on behalf of themselves, but also on behalf of those folks that get out there each and every day and work very hard. So kudos to all of our employees.
Yeah, it was great at that North Rapides meeting. Your police chief had a chance to speak before Sheriff Hilton spoke, and he was talking about how they had gotten a call a few days earlier, an elderly couple passing through town, and your police officers, apparently the not only the tire, but I think the rim was damaged. The police officer stayed with them for 3 hours or something to get that fixed and get them back underway. So that shows you the type when you've got those types of people. And we'll take this call very quickly. Ask away, caller, to the mayor.
Hey, just wanted to give my comments on Mayor Fields. I met him the other day at the Beulah Lake Fireworks. I was one of the vendors out there. I don't live in the Alexandria Pineville area, but he is a class act.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. And
Yes,
when you talk about teamwork, also, we try to, we have great partnerships. When some people may not think so, but City of Alexandria, Police Jury, CVB, the Chamber, CLECO, all those folks, they're important to us.
As usual, we'll look even more forward to it next month, Mayor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Likewise, thank you all for having me again.
Thank you.
For Mayor Clarence Fields and Jim Leggett, I'm Matthew Dunn. This has been Talkback on KSYL 970 AM and 100.3 HD3, a Sinlaw Broadcasting production. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
You've been listening to Talkback 970. The views expressed were those of the host and callers, and not necessarily those of Sinlaw Broadcasting.